Great, thank you. All right, exciting. Well, this is Liz.
Hi.
I'm Jonah. We'll get more into our intros in a minute, but I think we'll just get started. If you have questions, there'll be little spots after. There's about 3 sections. There'll be little spots for a few questions, but at the end we can do a lot more questions. And yeah, we'll just get into it.
Yep, let's rock and roll.
All right. So, Activated Villages, you can find this on Facebook right now if you're interested. There's about 700 people there. It's a great link to connect with other people who are interested in community. We've done community speed dating before, have a bunch of people come and get together and talk about different issues, see if you can find a fit and meet people, because sometimes that's the hardest part. This talk is also, I personally live in an intentional community, and it's geared towards community, but as we move along, a lot of these loans and these programs, if you're interested in buying yourself property or learning about it, there'll be some gems in here for you as we go along. All right, my background. So I was a U.S. Navy SEAL. Sniper. I also bought my first house in '99. A year later, bought another 2 houses using leverage off that first. If you guys remember that the market from like '99 to 2006 was just firing away. I just read some books and went for it. Spent all my money, ate ramen, took my Christmas break, fixed the place. And worked my way up to 6 houses. These are some of the photos. Also, around 2006, invested my money in a 4-unit build-up from the ground, condos, 10-unit build-up from the ground. Probably lost about $100,000 on that process in that time. So if you believe that you learn a lot from losing money, I learned a lot. I kind of coming out of that process, I started understanding, why not slow down and do what I do well, and also that is readily available to us, which is buy a house or 2, a duplex, fix it up, rent it out, as long as there's a return on investment. And in that process, I also went through and just said, I was having some no's from people I was working with, and I was just like, I'm not going to take no anymore. I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to figure out how I can do this process as best I can. And in that section of time, I bought 8 houses in 8 months, and I didn't qualify for a bank loan. And if you kind of see that as sort of through that process, sort of see it as like the matrix. I sort of saw what we needed to do, what I needed to do to be successful at pulling in real estate, and also sort of realizing, if you ever want to know the secret to real estate is, how much is this $1 million property really costing you? It's costing me 27 signatures. I'm making a promise to somebody, and this is just the exchange of paperwork. And however you feel about debt and those sort of things, we'll talk more about that, but it's been really fruitful for me. I live on a 9-acre intentional community, about 45 minutes north of here, called the Emerald Village, and I'm a realtor. So when I bought those 8 houses in 8 months, I wasn't a realtor. Just so you know, this was a process, just like I'm gonna do it and figure it out. So I live on the Emerald Village. It's 9 acres, 250 trees, 4 houses, a yurt, 2 creeks. We bought it for $910,000. We all came in with about 11 grand a piece. On that note, $11,000 a piece, 10 members. Might seem like a lot, but we've gone through this process of, all right, we weren't really sure how are we going to do this. Not everybody had the 11,000, but you're going to go through this process, and once you build this business plan for what you want to create, we have someone over here wants to have a warehouse with a kiln and have artists get together and have a membership fee. Once you create the plan, you're going to attract more people. And so in that process, parents of some of the people that we built with are like, wow, you're really going to do this, live more affordably than you live now, have all this, and have all these people who put energy into this property, which builds you equity. Sounds like a smart plan. Let me give you money. Or someone else in the group maybe lend you the $11,000 and you do a 3-year payback sort of situation. So these are sort of options that we went through, and to not be afraid by I don't want you to stop at any points in all these slides and sort of say, I don't have 11,000. You know, I'm not going to be able to really do this, so this doesn't apply to me. I just want you to remember, 8 houses in 8 months, I didn't qualify for a bank loan. There's a lot of things that are not going to go right, and you just have to sort of trust and keep moving. We, with this property, Emerald Village, bought it with a seller carry loan at 5% interest for 3 years, and that's that process. We had the availability to try to get a loan and other stuff, but the speed at which we needed to do this, we sat down and visioned, as you may do with some of your friends. We sat down January 4th, a few years ago, and then visioned the property, and then 20 days later, we found the property. 2 months later, we owned it. So that process was quite a speedy one, and we worked with the seller to give us a seller carry loan. For a long time, I didn't think that seller carry loans really were that available, but they are. Our monthly rent is about $800 each, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, utility, cushion. Only 8 of us live there. 2 of the other members are moving on soon. You know, so it's a pretty decent situation. Sustainable community. You're able to buy more property together, you know, versus go out and get yourself a $90,000 condo, or you can live in something. This is an example I pulled off in Colorado for friends. This is a Frank Lloyd Wright inspired home, $750,000. It was beautiful, would have been great. You know, 8 people could have lived there very comfortably, had art shows every month, done something, you know, I mean, people would love to come to this house fully set up. And that's not something you and your girlfriend or wife would be able to do necessarily. Buying now freezes your rent for life, and then it's free. You know, consider that. Of my six rental properties, I have 6 other rental properties that I rent out. You know, when I put them on 15-year loans. When I turn 52, they'll all be paid off. The mortgage that I receive is all positive cash flow. But those 6 rentals also give me about, you know, $300-400 a piece positive cash flow now, because it's super important to like set your business up well. But buying it now freezes it. If you remember back in the day what your rent was. When I first moved into an apartment in San Diego, my rent was $725. A year later, they were trying to charge over $1,100 for that apartment next door. And I was like, that's when I was like, I'm gonna go buy. Like this is crazy. I'm not gonna be able to figure that out. So in 15, 30 years, your community rent may still be $800 a month. But with inflation, everybody else's rents are going to be $2,000-3,000 a month. You know, so that freezes it. Imagine all your neighbors are your friends. When the moms take the kids for a walk in the strollers, they don't go around the neighborhood; they go around the property, and we know everybody. It's a super comfortable situation. You know, it's back to the 1950s. We don't lock our doors. You know, it's a really sweet situation. Support in raising kids, finance, creating dreams. When people have problems with finance, we're able to like help them out. You know, kids come and jump in, wake me up at 8:30 sometimes. When you see a mom who's like struggling, and you know, a lot of mothers just deal with this in their own home the whole time. But when I see Bianca rolling up with little Manny, and she's like doing her due diligence as being a good mom and a new mom, but you can see it on her face. I'm like, B, you okay? You need a break? Like, let me take the kid. And it's awesome for me. 2 hours, 45 minutes, go take the kid, go hang out, have a great time. And what a relief for her to be able to have that space. And the creating dreams part, just everything that we collaborate on as a group is just so much more beautiful working together. So community property is hard to sell. This is our property. You know, it's about 9 acres. If you can imagine, you know, all the fields that you're going to have to mow, like who's going to move on there and start mowing? There's 2-3 acre fields, another 1 acre field, another 1 or 2 acres for all the properties. That's a lot of work, a lot of trees to work with. The houses, the main house was a 1-bedroom house, you know, so you're going to have all the married couples that came to look at this. I've got 2 kids. What are you going to do? Move into the main house, put the 3-year-old in one studio, the 5-year-old in another house? This property sat for a long time, and you're going to come across that quite a bit in these interesting, stranger, more expensive properties. It's just hard to sell, and that means also that you can get a better deal on it, make a better price, a lot of other things. So good opportunity for you now. This is about community, so maybe you could turn around, introduce yourself to the people next to you. Some of you guys know each other, but meet somebody, say hi. We're not dating. Bring it back. Bring it back. Psst, psst, psst. You can get each other's numbers later. So, financing your dream. I'm going to talk a little bit about the broad spectrum before Liz comes up and gets a little more specific. This has been like some of the harder bit for people, but preparing your finances. Uniform residential loan application. This is just sort of standard for the mortgage industry. You could get this out and fill it out. Secure your financing first in any sort of real estate deal. I don't do it. I'm like, I don't do it. But you should. Every time I don't do it, I go through a massive stressful process in trying to make everything happen, and like it either does or does not work out. But if you secure your financing first, really in this market, you're going to be able to go up and say, we want to buy this property. And they're going to look at your financing and say, you're qualified. I'd like to sell it to you. Otherwise, they're not going to mess with you. Gather individual financial statements. Great opportunity for everybody in the community to sort of see who you're going in with. You're marrying possibly 9 other people, 10 other people. It's maybe not great to just, it's good to know exactly where everybody stands. And what I found is usually people who make a lot of money don't want to let everybody know. And that's sort of like, okay, that feels better, but still, it's good to sort of sit at the table and know where everybody stands. Get an approval letter from the bank saying you're qualified for whatever amount. Banks may want several people to qualify for the loan. For us, we're refining our loan. We've got 2 out of 10 members who are going to be on the loan, but it doesn't mean they own the property. We all have put the same amount of money in. We're all going to own the property equally. You can separate that out differently. It just means that the bank has standards, and if you're going to borrow money from the bank to do this, find whatever they need and apply that, and then create whatever you want to create after that. Even if you don't get a bank loan, prepare like you are. We got a seller carry loan through the seller, but we still went forward and said, here you go. Here's our finances. This is why if we're going to live in each of these units, you can tell that if I now am moving out of a $2,000 a month payment, and I'm moving here and paying $800 a month, as well as everybody else here, we got a lot of wiggle room. And these are all our financial statements, and like, great, all right, I'm going to sell it to you. How are you going to share this community? Are you going to buy the property and rent the rooms out? Or are you going to pool your money and go equally? I'm a big fan of pool your resources and buy equally. I've talked to a few other eco-villages or communities that, have talked to me about, wow, we have such a hard problem getting people to garden, to work, to build stuff. And I'm like, do you own it or does everybody own it? And I'm like, I own it. I was like, that's a great vision, but to really get everybody to show up and to have shared ownership and to put their energy into it, there's something different towards pooling your resources as a group. And making that happen and sharing that burden where it's not just on you. If that property, that $1 million property was mine, and that's my burden, and I'm having problems, I may get stuck with it. But with 9 other people, when we're having problems or coming through with solutions, you have a much better chance of success. Right now, rising interest rates have been dropping beautifully low. It's, I think, right now, maybe around 3.5%. If you do it as a group, it may be closer to 4.5% if you're buying, because they may consider that an investment property. But still, a $1 million loan, close to mine, at 10% down with taxes and insurance, at around a 5% loan is $6,000. Another way, if you're ever looking at property and you want to figure out, for every $100,000 on the loan, You want to buy a place, for every $100,000, it's $600. That's all your mortgages, taxes, insurance. At 7%, that same $6,000 a month would be $7,000. At 10%, $9,000. At 15%, $12,500. So at 15%, it's over double. You're either going to have to scale down to a $500,000 property, or you're going to have to pay twice as much rent. If I'm paying $800, all of a sudden I'm paying $600, $1,600. That's not very sustainable for me. Rates in the 80s were 18%. You know, and if you think these are sort of, we're doing fine, I've seen it for a long time. My mother had a loan in the 80s for 18%. You know, it's not unrealistic, and rates will go up, and so it does affect the type of property you can buy. Rent versus own, I know I've hit on it a few times, but San Diego average, this is a little old too, $1,400 about for an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, maybe $1,100. Average mortgage interest rate, 3.88%. Evo 10 members, 810,000. We put some money down, so 810,000 would be $480 per member with 115 utilities and other dues. So basically, if you're going to get an apartment in San Diego for the average, maybe you don't live in the average place, maybe you live in a nicer than average or less than average, but $1,400 for a one-bedroom apartment, and I'm, you know, all my expenses are close to, you know, $800 depending on what we're doing at the time, you know, and that's the difference between you live apartments or you can come live in my house with me. There's a online mortgage calculator. It's a great opportunity as you're going through looking at properties to just sort of help you out. If you're going to put 3% down, 20% down, 10% down, just look up one of the online calculators and it'll figure out how much your insurance and taxes will be to sort of help you with all that. Or you can just go back and remember $600 per every 100,000. Buy what you can afford. I have a lot of groups that have come to me. There was this $3.5 million project in New Mexico that needed, you know, that's a you know, $28,000 a month mortgage, and they needed it to hit right away. They needed people in there and working. Consider buying a property that you can cover expenses with rent and not need a successful business to survive. I have a lot of people who have business ideas, and if that business doesn't do well for a while, your whole project's going to go underwater. You know, so for us, $1 million property with 9 acres, $800 a month per person. If everything doesn't go well on the property, we're still just $800 a month is affordable in San Diego. But with this massive property, we can do projects. We can have educational farm workshops, throw events. We could do a lot and make money, which we're working towards, and then either reduce our rents or build more beautiful stuff. So if you need to build more units too, that's another one that comes up. People are like, oh, this is great. There's a property in Poway I was showing for a long time, 67 acres, 2 houses. And there's this assumption that, oh, we've got all this room, we can build other houses or put yurts up. All that is most likely not legal, and most likely the county won't let you do it. So if you're expecting to throw a couple of trailers on there and have friends living there till you build a yurt and then whatever, we've had our yurt taken down by code enforcement. You have 2 trailers on your property anywhere in San Diego County. You have a small 10-foot for trash hauling, and you have a regular 20-foot little thing that you take on vacations. You're illegal. If a neighbor calls you for that, you have to remove one of those trailers. Code enforcement will come, and they'll also come and probably tell you about everything else that's going wrong. Your converted garage is not legal. You need to spend $12,000 and turn it back into a garage, whatever your situation. So basically, be careful about this process. Make sure that as is the property that you're buying can support the people that are there. And then if you build further and put a yurt up and do other things, that you're dropping your rents and making it more affordable. And consider a property you can fix up and grow into. You can certainly buy, there's lots of mini mansions out here that have a mansion, maid's quarters, 2-bedroom maid's quarters, 1-bedroom guest house. Like, what a sweet little, something that looks kind of like this. Ready to go, 1.1 million, 3 houses on there, not a lot of lawn. This is just a luxury home that I've never had a dishwasher, so some of these kitchens that I see, it'd be amazing to live in something like that. And you know, when you do the math on it, when people are paying rents of $400 or $500 to own, not just live, but to own these luxury places, you can do that. Or you can get a place that's a bit of a fixer and you can grow into, and you have room to like push out. So this is one of the sections. Are there any questions? We'll do a couple. If there's any questions, I know that's pretty simple, but if there's any questions, you're more than welcome to ask.
Well, you just mentioned about scalability.
Yeah.
And that's something that intentional communities are very interested in,
Yeah.
scalability. So based on the market that you've seen right now, in the past 6 months per se or year, what properties percentage have you seen that can be scalable based on code, whether they split it, already have a lot split it on the city or whatnot? Can you speak about that?
Yeah, so scalability. So the question is like growing into it. So there's definitely more planned communities where like we're gonna be able to have, you know, there's some on the East Coast where they're working towards 50 houses over a large piece of land. San Diego County, there's only been one builder who was allowed to do cluster housing, which communities like houses here, open land here, walkways. It's definitely difficult here. You know, you may get into the little bit outside of city limits and it's like 2-acre lot, one house, street access, next 2-acre lot. But if you plan, definitely in the commercial market, there are, you know, just last night I saw a lot of places that this lot is zoned to have extra. So you've got, whatever, in town, an apartment building, 10-unit apartment building, whatever, open space right next to it that comes with it. And it's zoned for another 16 units. And if you wanted to build that, that's perfectly legal. But you should look into that beforehand. Or if you have a 20-acre property that you're buying with 1 or 2 houses on it over here, you need to figure out the capability of being able to start subdividing 2-acre lots off and building those. And it's a process. It may take some time to subdivide off portions of it, but as long as those 2 houses, they need 4 acres, so now you've got another 16 acres which you can do that with, and it's a process and you can grow into that. But I would definitely we went to the county first before we started, and like, this is the property, this is the zoning, what can and can't we do? And they lied to us. So they didn't lie, they're not liars, but we went back later and was like, we would like to cash in that piece of verbal agreement we had before, and they're like, oh, that was incorrect. So it is certainly a process. If you've ever thought about trying to get permits or zoning or code, it's definitely, each inspector and each person can kind of sort of, this is how I interpret San Diego code. So on a larger project, if you want to scale, truly scale, yeah, there's lots of places out there that you can that are ready and even zoned, and some people say, look, we're selling the lot, here's the plans, so we put the 2 years of work into this beautiful place, and you could.
You've seen some out there, yeah?
Yeah, just last night, yeah. So it's doable, but you need to plan beforehand. Don't just jump into that. I'm gonna buy this land and then we're gonna build a bunch of houses over here. That's not necessarily the process.
I want to get that information up front, if I should even proceed with this.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to really save my energy and want to know if that information you can get up front.
You can, and I think it's a great opportunity to work with nonprofits or other people who have a little bit more of a public eye, and why not go to the city and be like, they would love to see a program where a community is building, space for artists, housing. We're going to do the whole thing and be an example for eco-living. There's a local city councilman, maybe the mayor wants to be like, and I say this because 2 of our members have a nonprofit called Growcology in Riverside, and that's their process. They went through, the mayor loves to stand next to Growcology and say, this is my green project that I support. And so that is happening all over the US, but going in ahead of time and saying, we would love to do this. And they're going to help you do that. But more organization, more time, you can go through and say, 10 of us would like to buy a piece of property, this fits, we can do it. But I think having a better and more beautiful vision is also completely doable. Oh, Bubba.
If you sell a piece of your land, like 1 acre, does that change the zoning laws of who can build on there? Does it really not matter on who owns it or how many people own it?
You can certainly sell it to other people. And you can sell plots of land. It doesn't. The zoning exists. You can sell plots of land. It's just Make sure you know why you're selling that land or what you're doing. It's an opportunity to take a big piece of land and then have ownership of certain houses, which we own all the houses. I can be kicked out of my house by my community and moved into another space because I don't actually own my house. I own the entire property, and we as a community make agreements or consensus about where we're moving, what's best for the entire community. So that's a possibility. Anthony?
Would you talk a little bit about when they came by and told you to take down the yurt and how you were able to negotiate keeping that up? Because that was a process.
We don't have a yurt on our property. This is not the yurt you're looking for. The process was we had an event. I don't know, in our community we like to throw events. We had a large event, and in came, you know, a lot of people, the Dr. Bronner's fire trucks and tubs and teepees and lots of cars and purple buses. And so after the event went by, a neighbor called mostly about the one thing that was illegal, the multiple trailers on the property. You have your friends drive up. By the time, and they knew what they were doing. They called the sheriff, they called code enforcement, they called the fire department. All three of those departments have to come and see. And the sheriff was, the fire department was really cool. The sheriff came and looked inside the trailers and saw that no one was living there, luckily. And they had nothing else they could do. And code enforcement came, and unfortunately, you need to create a structure. Our structure was, you know, not well in place. So code enforcement came, the trailers, hey, these trailers are illegal. They drove through the property and started taking pictures of everything. If you have a pile of wood on pallets outside, it needs to be under a covered roof, not a, you know, that was all illegal. And we have a lot of lumber materials we collect to work on the place. The trailers needed to go, and the yurt, and that's a whole different situation. So for us, you know, we went through the process of talking to all the different departments in the city, and a lot of them got on board, like, yeah, okay, if that's what you want to do, fine. And when you got to fire, it's like, can this skin resist for whatever it is, 20 or 30 minutes of fire? No, he's like, well, if you stucco it, I'll let you have it. I was like, it's not really the concept of a yurt to stucco the outside. And so we took it down. And we took it down, and code enforcement is not staffed well enough to, you know, we took it down, they took pictures, it was down. They're not gonna come back in San Diego County necessarily. In City Heights, they have 2 code enforcers paid by City Heights just to check houses. And then there may be certain districts like La Jolla or other place that do that to kind of have a standard. But for most of San Diego, they're not gonna come back. So we put it back up, you know, and that's the process that we went through. But also make sure your yurt is not visible from the street or whatever, or your trailer.